Hey guys, this is Amber from NotableInk.com, and I'm thrilled to be here with Altenew today for the April blog hop and release. And I'm going to be featuring 2 cards in this video. I also have a 3rd card in a separate video, so I'll link that at the end. But we're going to be doing a study in watercolor and the fancy hello die today. I'm going to start with some watercolor backgrounds, and I have a piece of watercolor paper here. And I put some clean clear water on it, and now I'm putting in some pigments from the Tropical Fiesta watercolor brush marker set from Altenew. And once I get some pigment down, I'm adding some additional water because I want to get this ink to start to run and kind of bleed out to the side there and just have a nice soft edge. So after I added the water, I lost a little bit of my vibrancy, so I'm just going back in with some more color, a little bit more water, and then I'm holding it up on its side so that I can get that pigment to bleed. So I set that aside to dry, and I'm doing a second one here. This one is with Lava Rock, and what color is that? Purple Wine. And I don't end up using this one for any of the cards in the block hop. In fact, I haven't used it yet, but I set it aside to use at a later date. But I thought I'd show you this one too, since it has a little bit of a different pattern on it. So you can see those two there, and we'll go ahead and do, I don't even know what I want to call this. I guess we'll just call it stamping with water. So I'm just adding some clean clear water to one of the stamps from a study in watercolor, and now I'm going to add my watercolor brush marker directly to my stamp. So my idea of putting the water on the stamp first is I wanted to do a wet on wet technique and a loose watercolor look, but I wanted it to be a little more structured. I have a hard time with loose watercolor of just kind of like silhouette shapes like this. And yeah, I'll do this with a different technique a little bit later in the video, so you'll see that. And I definitely prefer this technique. So again, I started with just clean clear water on the stamp. And then I put down some greens for the leaves, yellow for the flower. Now I'm going to come in with my shadows. And I'm going to add a little bit more water because I don't like those harsh edges there. So I'll add a little bit more water, a little bit more pigment, and I'll just keep adding it in this way until I'm happy with how it looks. I'm going to add a little more green to the leaves. You can see that I used dark blue, and we'll move on to the next stamp. So I'm only going to show 2 of these, and then I'll show you a different technique that I did for this for a similar look. So here we can see that my orange really spread out due to the amount of water that I had on the paper and on the stamp. I'm going to go back in and add my greens, and I just keep layering up the color until I'm happy with the amount of shadow that I have and the amount of mixing. And I love how the pigments mix together with this technique. It really adds to that loose feel, but I feel like I'm more in control. So if that's something, if loose watercolor makes you kind of nervous, this might be a technique that you want to try. So I'm going to go ahead and dry those. You can see I did a couple more, and then I die cut these out. And then what I decided to do, so I'm going to arrange them on the card, and I'm going to put it on that watercolor background. I'm just going to throw a piece of tape on it since I had them arranged the way that I wanted, and then I'll put my dimensional adhesive on the back. And then I can peel up that piece of tape that's just holding everything together. And then I'm going to add just some small foam squares just to add some dimension in between the layers. Because right now all I had was dimensional foam on the back side of those layers. I have the fancy hello die, which I cut from some green glitter cardstock and a piece of white cardstock, and I stacked those so there would be a white shadow. And I felt like it needed that just to separate it. So I've taken another piece of watercolor cardstock or watercolor paper, and I've die cut the images first this time, and then I've put the tape on the back of the paper just to hold the die cuts in there. So now this time, instead of stamping, what I'm trying out is just taking the clean clear water directly to the die cut. I do not like this technique as much. So this one, I feel like I have less structure with this. So I'm still trying to go for that loose watercolor look. So I'm adding it direct to paper. And even though I'm trying to be loose with it, I feel like I don't know, it just doesn't look as good to me for whatever reason. I also don't like the fact that I no longer have the white outline of the die cut. So I don't like that as much either. I really like the white separation of a die cut when it doesn't go all the way up to the edge. So I wanted to show this to you though, so that you could have two different options. I'm going to show you a third option as well. And so ultimately what I end up doing, because I don't love how this looking is, I put it on a stamp block and I'm going to add pigment like I did when I was doing it on the Misty. So it's still going to mix like that. And now I'm liking this more. So what I end up doing after I complete this one is I go ahead and just keep the stamps on the stamp block, and I go back to that original method that I used with putting the water on the stamp, taking that to the paper, and then adding my pigments. And so if you don't have a Misty, you can absolutely still do this technique. And in fact, I like the way that these look just as much as I like the ones that I did on the Misty. So definitely you could do either one. And maybe you like the second technique that I did as well, that didn't have the white outlines. I will have all of the specific colors listed in my blog, and one of the things that I do is, so you can see all the two different types up there, I do remove them from the tape before they dry, just because I wasn't sure if it was going to stick too much or what the effect was going to be of it drying on the tape. So I removed them while they were still damp. What I think is so cool about this technique is because you're stamping with the water first, that's what confines all of the pigment to that area. So your pigment's never going to go outside of where you've stamped your water, which I think is really cool. And so I decided to just keep this on a plain white background, just clean and simple. I did pop up the center of it. I'm going to pop that up on this Sticky Back Fun foam, and then arrange the flowers, and then I just did a simple sentiment, thank you, which is from the A Study in Watercolor stamp set, and those are the cards. I hope that you enjoyed this technique today and give it a try. I think it is a fun way to get that loose watercolor but still maintain a little bit more control. And be sure to follow along on the blog hop. There's going to be tons of inspiration. Leave a comment on my blog for a chance to win a giveaway. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe so that YouTube shares it out to other people. And thank you so much for stopping by. Have a great day.